Hi, welcome back, Kelly Bandolo Studios. Today I want to talk about composition in art. Follow me over there. Okay, so we're going to talk about composition. One of the first things I want to talk about in composition is the unity or the concept of the piece. One of the examples that I'm going to use is a piece by Dorothy Fagan. This is a great piece. I love the concept of it. It's a very yin and yang piece if you look at it. It has a point of view. It has a meaning to it. There's a lot of busyness to the left and a lot of calmness to the right. Busyness starts from the upper left down to the bottom right, and the calmness starts from the middle, bottom right up to the upper left. Interesting. Almost a yin and yang feeling. Also, what's really amazing about this piece that I love the most is it's not really contrasting so much dark and light. The colors are balanced throughout both sides of this piece. So if there's peach in the bottom left, there's also peach up in those clouds. If there's purple or blue up in that upper left sky, there's also purple and blue down in the busy part. I think this is an interesting piece. I feel like it's trying, the concept of this piece is more to kind of talk about the balance between busy and calm in your life. And that's what I see in the piece. I mean, everybody has their own interpretation, which is amazing with artwork. So this is something that I really love for the concept of unity or concept in your artwork. Okay, so point number 2 is kind of the balance between the 2 points, as we were just talking about balance before. Balance in like the visual points, balance in the color conversation that you're having. The piece that I really wanted to show you about that was by Vartha Bharati. And it's a beautiful piece of artwork. It's probably one of my favorites that I was looking at when I was researching composition. This piece has a lot of balance between color. It's got the cools of the blue popped behind the cool green tree, but it also is beautifully balanced with that melony yellow color to the left behind the tree and going down around this floating island looking kind of thing. It's just really pretty. It's kind of like Avatar kind of feeling of a floating island, and it's got this tree, and what does that tree mean? And it's got the balance of purples in there with those kind of purple can often be used as a cool thing when it's like a bluish purple, but also purple is got red in it, so it balances the red and blue. It's a really good balanced color to use. I use it a lot in my shading as shadows, but I love that the melony color is also put through. So this has got this feeling of an abstract, but it's also got a realistic sort of zing in there of the tree. And then right in the middle, to the sort of middle lower part, as it's moving off the page, movement, is this chair on another little floating island. I love that. And it's like, are you in the chair? Do you have a guest in the chair? Are you wondering who's in the chair? Are you wondering if somebody was in the chair and now they're not in the chair? Really a great focal point of this piece. It's got really nice color balance. The composition is beautifully balanced. I just like the objective of it, and I like the balance of the whole piece. Let's go on to number 3. My next point that we're going to be talking about is movement and rhythm. So movement is when your eye is directed around the canvas. Movement is where you're taken to a place. A lot of times it's done by directionals. So you're directing this way and you're directing that way, and the eye is brought that way by color, but then it's brought back that way by function. Or maybe the focal point is for some reason at the bottom right, but your eye it started at the left, and then it zigzags down to the focal point. So in directions, I really like this artist, Marie Aston, and what I liked about it is it's very simple. It's probably a small painting, but I really like it because it made a really good point. Okay, so the brush strokes are what's causing the action. The green brush stroke in the middle of the painting goes down and to the right. The brush strokes of the grass on the left are going down. And yet the road has got this sort of yellowy tone, which is a little bit lighter than everything else. It's sort of pulling your eye up the road to the left. I think the main focal point on this one, and the movement of it, look at, you have those mountains in the back, and you have that contrast with the blue and the purpley sky, very cool to warm. So cool and then warm. So that's a directional also. Remember, there's a psychological reasons for directionals. So I think that the focal point and the movement of this is that it's just having you go up the road, and then there's that building that's highlighted in this sort of a very pale yellow. I find that to be an interesting focal point, and with the red, just that red cypress tree looking thing there above that. It's almost like, it's like giving you an arrow pointing. This is what you're supposed to be looking at right here, this yellow building. Now, is it in the sunset? Is it in the sunrise? Is it in the morning, or is it at night? You know, that is something that I find to be the story. And so, you know, you're saying to yourself, because I know where I live, sometimes at night, the buildings get orange here, and I love it, the way the sunset hits the buildings, and they almost, from the brick or whatever's in the brick, it sort of reflects that sunset-y kind of feeling. I love that. So that's an interesting feeling when you're talking about movement. This definitely takes you, you'll look at all kinds of paintings. Monet's, Van Gogh uses brushstroke to pull your eye in a direction. Brushstroke is really important when you're talking about paintings. It's really important, and also the composition of where your eye is supposed to be led. Is your subject matter looking in one way, but his hand is leaning the other way? Is your subject a bowl of fruit, but the light's coming from off camera? So you're kind of like looking through the canvas, like trying to see where the window is that's bringing in that bright light. So, you know, movement and rhythm in a piece, that the light, the composition of that you're trying to have focal points, you know, that's really the story of the piece of artwork. That's designing a piece of artwork. So let's go on to number 4. Okay, so number 4 is about focal point. Focal point can be complicated, and you may want to actually even complicate a focal point. The subject that I'm going to be using, which is complicated, is Herman Smorenberg. Love this piece of artwork. This piece of artwork is telling a tale. It's got a lot to talk about. It's got a lot of focal points. But in the end, as you journey through the canvas, as you're looking at everything, the subject really is the girl with the umbrella. So you're looking at the girl with the umbrella. She's got beautiful red hair. She's got all these warm tones around her, and yet she's contrasted with the umbrella behind her that's turquoise, that pops that red hair. So maybe that was probably a design concept, was just making that red hair more red. She has red lipstick on, her hair is red, her skin tone is warm. She's a warm, loving red person with that warm tones. And yet she's wearing a blue skirt and sort of something that's reflecting the colors, which is kind of a satiny looking shirt. Interestingly, she has a pile of things down to her right, the left of our canvas, and all kinds of things in there. That's got a story to tell. I'm sure that he has a whole meaning behind this piece. There's a mask in there, there's clothing, there's a mirror, there's a bag, like is she running away, you know, with all of her personal items. Also, the water is moving away from her. The water is moving away from her and crashing on the rocks. That's very dramatic. You know, when you're talking about meaning in a piece of artwork, water crashing on rocks is very meaningful. It's important to talk about the fact also that there's an architectural feature which balances all that stuff to the far left off. That architectural, whatever it is balancing all the other. There's your balance right there. And then you have a hot air balloon down a little bit further down. And you also have a volcano. Pretty much not in the center of the piece, but off to the left and almost more towards her. And whether you see it or not, there's like Halley's Comet in there, or some kind of a comet, of shooting star. So this is telling us a story. The focal point to me is her. She's the focal point. She's the thing that we want to talk about the most. Are these thoughts in her mind? Is she dreaming? Is she having was she dropped off by the balloon on this rock? And all the drama is being left behind her, meaning the volcano and the building and the structure. And maybe she's leaving the construct of civilization, and she just doesn't want to be involved in that anymore, and she's taking everything that means anything with her. So here's an interesting concept of the story, but in the end, the focal point is her. But what's really great about this piece of work is that it's taking you on this great journey, and it's a great journey. So it's a great piece to look at. It's a great piece to ponder on. It's something that I would definitely hang somewhere in my home and just sit there and look at it for a long time, because it's telling us a story, and it's a personal story. It's a story to the artist, but it's also a story to you. So that's what you kind of want to do in your work. You want to tell a story that's something that's worth telling. Tell a story that's got something to tell. So let's just move on to number 5. Okay, so we're on to number 5, and number 5 is a piece that I did when I was living in Mexico. I had my son model for me, and there's a famous photograph of Nureyev, and I love the balance of that, the contrast of that piece. And my son has this long, lanky build, and I just had him pose with lighting from behind, and we lived in an area that had jungle around us. And so the light dappling through that created a really interesting optical look. I liked this piece all by itself. I was using it for a specific reason, but the interest of this piece is that it, just looking at it myself, is that the contrast between light and dark, and that's another really important point, contrast. Contrast between the color of his hair against the lightness of his arm, contrast of the dappling of the lighting against him. The background I wanted to be medium, and you'll see in the next part of why I did that. But really for this particular piece all by itself, I really just wanted to have the contrast. The movement of the piece is that he's looking to the right, and his arm is taking you up and forward and back, and his other arm brings you back and around, and you're kind of zigzagging around the complications of how the light's hitting the muscle and how the light's hitting him, and where the light's coming from the left and he's looking to the right of the artwork. So that's kind of, for me, that's what I was trying to create in this particular piece. What I did in the next version of it was that we were living in the Mayan Riviera, and I wanted to incorporate a Mayan calendar in the piece. And that took a little doing because I had to do the calendar, but also I wanted everything around that to be dark, and I wanted the light to be coming through the center of the calendar for reasons, to have the light source through the Mayan calendar. I wanted to do, we're moving through the Mayan calendar. And then I had to do the reflection of the light from him from the left, and it's hitting the calendar also, but it's reflecting off the red of the calendar onto him. So the Mayan aspect was then on him. And so I was trying to create that effect of the light and dark, the journey through the piece, your eye is moving, like where is he looking at, and it's catching his arm, and it's zigzagging through his figure, and the whole piece is a zigzag basically. But also now it's encapsulated in this round thing that's pulling it all into a tight program, if you will, like it's constructing it. But it's all Mayan based, and the colors are, these are traditional colors that are used, more brighter colors, but I like that sort of dark background. In this particular one, not in the other one, but in this one, I highlighted his right profile so that you could see it and it wouldn't just completely disappear between the darkness of the other one, because I wanted to cast a shadow of him onto the Mayan calendar to create a 3D effect. So this is one of those things that's, you know, talking about the contrast between light and dark, you know, talking about you know, the story that we're trying to tell with this piece. So let's move on to number 6. Okay, so now we're on to our final highlight, number 6. And number 6 is about proportions. Proportions is how your whole piece of artwork comes together. It has a lot, it's a lot like the unity concept, but proportions can be exaggerated for lots of reasons. You know, if you're doing that super vixen kind of look, and she may have that superheroes type of build, small waist, you know, that whole thing. So that could be something that we're talking about. You can do a piece of artwork with big eyes or big lips, or where you're doing something that's extremely large and out of proportion. But for lots of reasons, proportion is important in getting your focal point proportionally in the place that it needs to be in the designed piece. I'm using a piece that I recently just did of a 57 Chevy, a red 57 Chevy. And for me, the proportion was I wanted the front to be really big. So I did that view of the front being big and the back being like it's moving. That's also creates that movement feel. And even in the piece of artwork, I had the color kind of smushed behind it a little bit to create that speed kind of feel. The piece that I did, was done this way so that more for branding, to have the signature to the far right, but as a piece of artwork, the signature is to the left. And I do that because I don't want this car to run over my signature, but also I don't want the focal point for the direction of it to be going to the right and have my signature there. That's rude. So I will probably put the signature, when it's finished, to the far left, a little bit more subtle. What I really liked about this piece in the proportion is that I really wanted it to feel like it's big and it's coming right past you, you know, pay attention, you know. So that had a lot to do with it. Where the piece is placed on the paper, it still leaves darkness above it. It has like a concrete-y feel down to the lower left. I think what also is interesting on the piece, it's kind of it's not necessarily a conceptual piece, it's done for a specific reason, but it does have the direction feeling, and it has the speed feeling, it has balance, it's definitely balanced out, where you have all the action of the grill in the front, and then you have the feeling of it moving away from you on the upper left. So I do like that. I don't like all the information to be on the far right, so I wanted it to have something, your eye carrying you in many directions. There's definitely contrast in light and dark. The piece is a Chevy that was photographed outside, and it had the sky, and you could see in the highlights, you could see, yeah, there is a lighter, like, natural color with the pinkish red, but also I wanted to add the bluish violety color, light pale violet and light blue in the highlights to sort of feel like that sky feeling coming down. And I love the contrast of that purpley blue color against the red. I loved that feeling. It really highlights it a lot, looks really neat. Also, in the bottom of the piece is that's highlighted in the bumper as well as the lower portion of the door panel is the yellow from the parking spot that it was in. And I really wanted to show that. I wasn't showing it as a parking spot, I was showing it as we're zipping by, you know, and this is the median in the road. So I loved that color just sort of stuck in there because it really does stand out against the piece. The blue license plate was an actual blue license plate, but I also liked that it was blue as opposed to the red of the car, contrasting. It was a complicated piece to do because the grill has a lot of highlights. You can't really see it in this photograph, but the grill has a lot of highlights in it. And so I think it was, it took me a long time to do it and get it right because chrome is a great thing to illustrate, but boy, is it complicated to illustrate. Drawing the car, I love drawing cars, so that was easy. But the chrome is really important to get the reflective things done properly. So that kind of really talks a lot about the proportions of getting that chrome to be almost larger than life in a way, because that's kind of the best part on the 57 Chevy to me, is that, you know, that front end. It's very dramatic looking to me. I love that. So those are my 6 outlines and things for composition for art. I think it's something, you know, I'll send a list to you. If you email me down below, I can send you the list and the outline to you so that you'll have it as reference. I had this reference actually in my studio for many, many years, making sure that everything that I was designing as a piece of artwork was going to come out exactly as it should. So check it out, email me, subscribe. I'm always posting, probably weekly. You know, I had a little bit of a delay with my computer crashed, but I want to, you know, keep going and helping you design your work so we could show together and, you know, be friends together and help each other out in art. If you have any suggestions that you think are also important for composition, please post them below. I'd love to hear from you. Anything that you, or any topics that you would like to work on, I would love to help you with that. Please subscribe, definitely like, and follow me here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Kelly Bandelos Studios, and I'm very happy to have you guys watching the video. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Namaste.